ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World, where every word matters. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guest on this next interview. The European Union is moving forward with plans to impose tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles, despite opposition from key member states like Germany. These tariffs, which could be as high as 45%, are intended to counter what the EU perceives as unfair subsidies from China. However, this move risks triggering retaliatory measures from Beijing and further deepening division within the European Union. The decision has sparked debate over how the bloc should manage its increasingly complex trade relationship with China. Joining us today on TVP World to discuss these developments are Matej Šimalčik, Executive Director of the Central European Institute of Asian Studies, and Jakub Faryś, Chairman of the Polish Automotive Industry Association. Hello guys, welcome to TVP World.
Good evening.
So I would like to start with Jakub, because you are working with the automotive industry, and my question would be how impactful this tariff is actually going to be for the European market as a whole, as opposed to the automotive industry, because there is a debate on how widespread this actually is going to impact the European economy.
First of all, we as automotive industry, European automotive industry, are working on the statement because, which is very important thing, it's not the end of the story. Still are ongoing negotiations between European Union and China because we don't need the trade war, both sides. So, first of all, we have to wait for the final, let's say, final decision. And I do believe that we will find, we, together with Chinese, we find a solution. What is for us is the most important, many times.
Fortunately, we do have a little bit of connection problem, but meanwhile, let's go to Matej, because you can help us understand the political aspect of it. Some people are saying that maybe this decision is actually more political than economical. Do you agree with that assessment?
I don't necessarily agree with that assessment, actually. We've seen that this decision is being made after quite a lengthy investigation by the EU Commission into the scope of subsidization of the automotive industry in China. And what also confirms that this is not inherently political necessarily is the fact that the tariffs are not going to be targeting only homegrown Chinese brands of EVs, but any EVs being produced in China, meaning including those being produced by Western brands in China, which to me shows that this is more about economy of the production rather than a purely political decision. Of course, there is some political element to it, given that the decision comes after we've seen over the last term of the EU Commission a sort of geopolitical and geo-economic turn in its thinking on China, which has abandoned the traditional overly open approach to China and trade with China, and is starting to also think about these kind of political issues, security issues, competitiveness issues in the relationship beyond just purely trade relations. So I would not necessarily agree with that claim. Still, this is a decision in which politicians are involved. So there is a political element to it, of course. And we are seeing a sort of division between the member states based on politics, actually, especially on how politically the decision could be perceived domestically within each member state, how much it may influence the markets within that member states. Because while we might have heard so far about potential impacts on EU as a whole, the member states are making a decision not on that, but rather on the impact it's going to have on that very individual member state. And the member states have a very different level of exposure to China. And naturally, the countries which were opposed to the vote are those that have traditionally in which the automotive sector has traditionally played an important role for their economic development, or which have also recently started to rely much more on attracting EV investments from within China, and thereby don't necessarily want to anger China with their vote.
Right. That actually makes a lot of sense, since we tend to see the European Union as a bloc when we talk about trade issues, but it's also important to remember that different countries have different level of investment when it comes to China, so their relation and how they go about this is also going to be different. Jakub, let's come back to you, because we did have a little bit of technical issue earlier. Please help us finish that thought that you had.
Again, for European automotive industry, the most important issue is to have a free and fair trade, because we, as an automotive industry, we are present in China. European automotive industry, we are present in China, so we have to have the situation where all players on this issue are have the good position to produce the vehicles and sell them. That's first. But the second one, we have to remember that for the moment we are talking about the electric vehicles, but still there is around 13% of the total European registration, I mean electric vehicles, but Chinese companies are also present and very, I want to even say, aggressive to present and sell to the European customers combustion engine vehicles. So that's a wider picture, not just only electric vehicles, but also the combustion engine ones. So this way or another, we will have Chinese companies here. So that's, again, I repeat, for us, it's the most important free and fair trade. And I do believe that finally European Union and China will find a solution which will be acceptable for both sides and, of course, for the customers.
Right. You mentioned free and fair trade, but isn't the purpose of this tariff maybe a move to level playing field with the heavily subsidized Chinese cars that's coming into Europe?
That's why European Commission started this investigation. That's why the people from European Commission were in China, and they've tried to find the best solution. That's why if we see that the level of the duty is different from company to company, some of them didn't cooperate, so they have the highest duty. But again, this way or another, Chinese vehicles in Europe has very, very attractive price for the customers, is lower than European ones. So that's I think that there is room to discuss.
All right, Matej, you just mentioned that, Jakub just mentioned that we don't want to go into a trade war with China, which might cause very severely when it comes to economics. Now, there's two lines of thought when it comes to how this EV tariff is going to lead down. One of it being that the potential trade war looming on the horizon, and some people say that, this might just incentivize both parties to come to a negotiating table and find a compromise that might be able to work for both parties. Which way do you think the European Union and China will be going?
Oh, of course, neither party wants a trade war. That would be not the best case scenario for either side. But to actually, get to the negotiating table, as you put it, you need to play your hand. You need to play your cards well. And we've seen that in the past year, while the Commission was was investigating the market in China, the negotiations with China on tariffs really didn't move in any desirable direction from our perspective. Of course, now the tariffs are adopted, so we have to see what kind of cards China will play. There's a multitude of things it can do. We've heard, threats from China on adoption of retaliatory tariffs on different types of products, including combustion engine cars, but also products not related to the automotive market, which were kind of targeting those member states which were in favor of the tariffs. It's like luxury brand products, brandy, and these kind of things, which were supposed to push France in a different direction with its vote. So this is something that we will need to observe now. But in my view, this is a first move from the EU, which now it will have some sort of leverage over China that it can go back maybe if China is willing to work with the EU on reducing the levels of subsidization within the market, leveling the playing field, and dealing with the underlying problem of Chinese overcapacity.
All right, now there's this, people have been saying that this might be also political because of the fact that we saw the war in Ukraine and Germany's over-reliance on Russian energy eventually led them to, not be able to stand up for Ukraine, at least in the first phase of the war. And there's an attempt since then to decouple some economical sectors from China, and people are seeing this as some of the steps going towards that. Do you think, Jakub, that this is something realistic to pursue?
Just one more very important thing. If we are talking about the next year, 2025, we have, which is very important issue for automotive industry and automotive market in Europe, will have a new level of the CO2 emission. So we have to have 93.6 gram per kilometer, and each and every producer, including Chinese, has to fulfill this goal. And to fulfill this goal, you have to sell a number of the electric vehicles with a zero emission. So that's another important issue. And what's more, coming back to what we are talking about, there is on the table. That's unofficial information, but there is on the table something which is called minimum prices, just to find a solution and find a win-win situation, because we have to remember that, of course, I'm the automotive industry person, but I understand that we are not the only one. There is many in different part of the business between European Union and China. So we have to find the let's say the golden solution for everybody.
Right. Thank you so much, guys, for your input and insight. What a riveting discussion. Unfortunately, we are running a little bit short on time, but thank you guys so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. And thank you for watching this edition of World Talks. For more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.